The most interesting thing about the Fireflies is that in any other story, these would have been the heroes. The Fireflies are a ragtag, scrappy group of rebels resisting an evil, tyrannical, oppressive, dystopian government. They are the underdog. They are outmatched, outgunned, overrun, and yet they still fight on. In spite of all their failure, they never give up, at least not in this first game. They are determined, dogged, tenacious. They fight against impossible odds because they believe in a better world. The slogan of the Fireflies is, "When you're lost in the darkness, look for the light." Well, The Last of Us is a very dark world. All of these characters are lost in some kind of darkness, and the Fireflies are offering a light. They are offering hope. On the surface, they seem like a very archetypical band of heroes. They are intended to seem similar to other popular and heroic resistance groups across fiction and cinema. They are intentionally meant to remind us of groups like the Rebel Alliance in the Star Wars series, or Gordon Freeman and Alex Vance, who lead the human resistance in Half-Life 2. There are even some similarities to the legend of Robin Hood and his merry men. We are naturally going to be sympathetic to a group like this. Audiences love an underdog. We love a rebellion. We love seeing a hero tear down the grim symbols of an authoritarian regime. The enemy of the Fireflies is FEDRA, the Federal Disaster Response Agency. FEDRA was tasked with managing the United States government response to the Cordyceps plague. As the disaster worsened, as more and more of the country collapsed into chaos, FEDRA seized more and more power, not out of greed, but out of necessity, to save whatever was left. Ultimately, in the name of saving the country, FEDRA suspended all other branches and agencies of the government, suspended the Constitution, and declared perpetual martial law. They govern with a militaristic, vice-like iron grip, ruling over every aspect of citizens' lives, casually killing any who oppose them. The Fireflies are fighting in part to bring back the courts, the legislature, the laws protecting citizens' rights. They want to restore the Constitution with peace and freedom and justice for all. But in the twisted and morally gray world of The Last of Us, even the heroes don't get to be heroes. But then again, it might not really be accurate to describe them as outright villains either. These are the first antagonists I've had the opportunity to examine on this channel who are fighting for something that the audience can easily support. They are fighting for something that seems right, for hope, for peace, for a more compassionate government, for a cure to the Cordyceps plague. There are many players who will walk away from The Last of Us fully supporting everything the Fireflies tried to do, who will believe that a cure would be worth almost anything, that the potential salvation of the human race is worth almost any choice, no matter how bloody. And there are just as many players who will find the murder of an innocent child for the uncertain hope of a cure to be unforgivable, unsupportable, and unjustified. And as I'm going to argue in this video, the Fireflies completely misunderstand what sort of cure Ellie is offering. They dismiss who she is as a person and instead focus on what they can dig out of her brain. It's actually their myopic and limited vision of the future of humanity that leads to their destruction. From a literary analysis perspective, the Fireflies are deliciously complicated. We can all talk ourselves in circles forever, trying to decide whether the Fireflies are the heroes or the villains of this story. So what I want to do now is to follow the story of the Fireflies in The Last of Us from beginning to end, to scrutinize every single instance in which they are mentioned or appear on screen. And with every appearance, I want to ask two questions. First, how are the writers presenting the Fireflies here? And second, what do the writers want us to think or feel about the Fireflies at this point in the story? Alright, let's begin at the beginning. Let's watch the first cutscene in the game where the Fireflies first appear. Here it is.
You see your IDs.
There you go.
What's your business here?
Got the day off. Visiting a friend.
All right, move on through.
Thanks.
Get out of here, Joe! Close it up! Fireflies! They're running!
Come on, let's get out of here.
Okay, so how are the writers presenting the Fireflies in this first scene? Of course, they don't actually physically appear on screen here at all. We see an explosion, we hear some gunshots, we hear a soldier cry out "Fireflies," but we never see them, which is of course a deliberate choice by the writers. I don't think the writers want the player to know how to think or feel about the Fireflies yet. We have no context for the events we're seeing on screen at this point. We don't know the purpose of attacking this checkpoint, what it could accomplish, if it is a heroic or villainous act. The writers want the player to feel lost and confused. They want this world to feel dangerous and chaotic, not just because of a global zombie fungus plague, but also because the setting is torn apart by warfare. The survivors are battling over the ruins. It's also worth noting how little reaction Joel and Tess have to this attack. They are neither excited nor very surprised. They are almost entirely ambivalent towards the Fireflies' actions. At most, they're a little annoyed that their way has been blocked. Their lack of reaction suggests that this attack is neither noteworthy nor exceptional, just one more battle among many, a long drawn-out resistance effort that doesn't affect the lives of normal people beyond creating an occasional nuisance. Notice how different this introduction is from any other fictional resistance group I've mentioned so far in this video, like the Rebel Alliance in Star Wars, who are first mentioned in hushed or excited tones, with respect, with reverence, with a hint of danger. There's none of that with the Fireflies introduction, and this is something we're going to continue to see as the story develops. The writers are intentionally trying to strip the Fireflies of that reverence and respect that is usually associated with these fictional resistance movements. The Fireflies are intended to be a bit dirtier, a bit grungier, a bit uglier, and perhaps more realistic than the usual portrayal. Most people in this world are just trying to live their lives, and the Fireflies are, at best, getting in the way. Moving forward, Joel and Tess's first goal in the game is to track down a man named Robert, who has double-crossed them. And we're going to watch the scene where they finally catch up with him because it is the second time in the game where the Fireflies are mentioned. Here it is.
Look, whatever it is you heard, it ain't true, okay? I just want to say...
The guns. You want to tell us where the guns are?
Yeah, sure, but it's complicated. All right? Look, all right, just hear me out on this. I got... Fuck. Stop! Oh.
Quit your squirming. You were saying?
I sold him.
Excuse me.
I didn't have much of a choice. I owed someone.
You owed us. I'd say you bet on the wrong horse.
I just need more time. Just, give me a week.
You know, I might have done that if you hadn't tried to fucking kill me.
Come on, it won't
Who
like
has
that.
our guns?
I can't. Just give me a couple...
Who has our guns?
It's the Fireflies. I owed the Fireflies.
What?
Look, they're basically all dead. We could just go in there, finish them off. We get the guns. What do you say? Come on. Yeah, fuck those Fireflies. Let's go get them.
That is a stupid idea.
Robert is characterized as someone who is more than a bit skeezy, driven by self-interest and greed, willing to betray any ally or friend as soon as it becomes convenient for him. In his very short time in the story, we see him betray first Tess and then the Fireflies. The writers want us to think he is an untrustworthy piece of crap, and he is the first character we meet who is directly associated with the Fireflies. He's not a Firefly himself, but he has clearly had significant dealings with them in the past and is continuing to make deals with them in the present. I think the writers want us to be a bit suspicious of them after this. If they're willing to deal with someone like Robert, what other unsavory figures might they be associated with? How low are they willing to stoop in their supposedly righteous cause? There are two other things worth noting in this scene. First is Robert's unwillingness to reveal his deal with the Fireflies, even when his life is in danger. It's not until Joel breaks his arm that he finally talks. It's hard to tell what is motivating his silence, violence? Is he simply loyal to the Fireflies? That seems unlikely considering that he's willing to kill them all only 2 sentences later. Instead, it seems much more likely that he is afraid of the Fireflies, afraid of what they might do to him if they learn that he revealed their secrets, more afraid of them than he is of Joel and Tess. Secondly, notice when Robert says, look, they're basically all dead, we can just go in there and finish them off. This is the first time that the player will learn that the Fireflies are losing this war. Not only losing, but on the brink of total destruction and annihilation. Soon after this scene, Joel and Ellie will cross a street littered with the bodies of dead Firefly soldiers. Throughout the game, the majority of the player's interactions with the Fireflies will be made up of picking dog tags off dead Fireflies. However, this is not unusual for fictional resistance movements. The first time we encounter the Rebel Alliance in Star Wars, they're getting slaughtered by Darth Vader and his stormtroopers. Resistance movements are supposed to be losers, at least at first. That's what makes them the underdog. That's why it's so inspiring when they ultimately prevail. If The Last of Us was an ordinary story, in spite of these defeats, the Fireflies would rally themselves. Joel would probably join their cause, and together they would win some great victory at the end of the game. Of course, The Last of Us is anything but an ordinary story. Immediately after killing Robert, Joel and Tess meet Marlene, the leader of the Fireflies. We're not going to watch this scene yet. I'll discuss it more later in the video when I discuss Marlene's character in depth. For now, all we need to know is that she is the face of the Fireflies in this story, the only Firefly who gets any significant character development or screen time at all. In this scene, she is depicted as wounded and desperate. Because most of her comrades are already dead, she has to persuade Joel and Tess to deliver Ellie to the drop-off point outside the quarantine zone. She has to resort to handing over what she believes to be humanity's last chance for a cure to a pair of random smugglers, who just happen to be in the right place at the right time, who she doesn't even know if she can really trust. This is a really desperate decision, only made because she feels she has no other choice. It's also worth discussing how little respect Joel has for the Fireflies in this scene. His behavior is dismissive, condescending, and even outright hostile at times. He is totally unimpressed by them, and he lets everyone know it. I think Joel's total lack of respect for the Fireflies colors the audience's perception of them. It seems to me like the writers don't want the player to respect the Fireflies, to believe in their cause. And I actually think this is a mistake. I think the writers were a little too successful in portraying the Fireflies as losers and failures unworthy of respect, which creates problems for the narrative later on, when we're supposed to believe the Fireflies are actually capable and competent enough to save the world, but I'll discuss that more later. Let's move on to the third appearance of the Fireflies in the game. Joel and Tess deliver Ellie to the Boston State House, where they are supposed to hand her over to a group of Fireflies. We're gonna watch that scene together, and as you watch, I want you to pay attention to something. I want you to watch Tess's behavior here. We already know what Joel thinks of the Fireflies, but Tess has another perspective, and hers is very different from Joel's, so here it is.
No. No.
What happens now?
What are you doing, Tess?
Oh, God. Maybe they had a map or something to tell us where they were going.
How far are we gonna take
As far as it needs to go. Where was this lab of theirs?
Oh, she never said. She only mentioned that it was someplace out west.
What are we doing here? This is not us.
What do you know about us? About me?
I know that you are smarter than this.
Really? Guess what? We're shitty people, Joel. It's been that way for a long time.
No, we are survivors.
This is our chance.
It is over, Tess! Now, we tried.
Give me your arm. This was 3 weeks. I was bitten an hour ago, and it's already worse. This is fucking real, Joel. You've got to get this girl to Tommy's. He used to run with this crew. He'll know where to go.
No. That was your crusade. I am not doing that.
Yes, you are. Look. There's enough here that you have to feel some sort of obligation to me, so you get her to Tommy's. They're here.
Damn it.
I can buy you some time, but you have to run.
You want us to just leave you here?
Yes.
There's no way that...
I will not turn into one of those things.
Alright, so once again, all of the Fireflies are already dead. Once again, the writers are depicting them as losers, as failures, as corpses. Once again, their cause is apparently hopeless. And yet, within Tess's reaction, for the first time in the game, we get a hint of something else, something more. It becomes clear that Tess does believe in the Fireflies. She believes that with Ellie, the Fireflies might actually make a difference, might create a cure, might build a better world. This should be a shock to the player because up until now, Tess has been portrayed as pragmatic, cynical, and self-interested. It's actually her former cynicism that gives her belief in the Fireflies a much greater weight. And Tess believes so strongly that she wants to fight for it, is willing to die for it, pleads with Joel to go on this whole Homeric, epic journey across the deadly wasteland of America to reach it. The Fireflies' purpose in this story is to offer this thin ray of hope to the most desperate, the most lost of characters, to give them something to believe in, to fight for. And in this scene with Tess, that hope is made real. The player gets to experience it through her character. This is one of the things that complicates the Fireflies' role as the final antagonist of the game. They offer the player this almost transcendental sensation of hope within this otherwise hopeless world of The Last of Us. And then at the end, they seem to betray that hope by trying to murder a child. But we'll discuss that more when we get to the final act of the game. After the death of Tess, the Fireflies don't appear in the story again for a long while, not until Joel and Ellie reach the city of Pittsburgh. In The Last of Us, Pittsburgh is an entire city that has been overrun by what the characters refer to as hunters, brutal human killers who prey on fellow survivors. But Pittsburgh wasn't always like that. Once upon a time, it was home to a quarantine zone ruled over by Fedra, just like the one in Boston. The people of Pittsburgh rose up against the oppressive government rule, but then afterwards descended into a violent and depraved Lord of the Flies style brutal self-rule. There's a lot of competition for the most horrific location in The Last of Us, but the utterly repugnant and disgusting people here make Pittsburgh a strong contender for that title. And as it turns out, it's all the Fireflies' fault, at least sort of. Hidden in a forgotten basement in the city, you can find the long desiccated corpse of a Firefly, and nearby is this text log. It reads, "We don't need the Fireflies. Sure, they might have started the fight, but we're the ones who have done all the work. It's our blood in the streets. I don't agree with them wanting to take the fight to other cities. They need to earn their independence on their own. And I definitely won't take orders from some Firefly leader all the way on the other side of the country. Before the fighting ends, I suggest we rid ourselves of them. This is our city, our people. I don't see why we can't rule ourselves." This note reveals that it was the Fireflies who began the resistance movement against Fedra in Pittsburgh, who led the attack on the government soldiers, who are responsible for the independence of the city, and so at least partially responsible for the horror that it has become. After defeating Fedra, the hunters of Pittsburgh turned on their Firefly leaders. What should have been one of the Firefly's greatest victories became one of their worst mistakes. Pittsburgh should have been the first foothold in the restoration of the United States of America. Instead, it was just one more step on the country's descent into violence, chaos, and brutality. With this backstory, I think the writers want players to question the competence of the Fireflies as an organization. The Fireflies were incapable of actually governing even a single city. They lost control immediately. Their idealistic resistance movement spawned an even more horrific and bloody ongoing disaster. Is this who we are going to trust with a cure? Is this who we are going to trust with restoring the American government? But there's one more mention of the Fireflies in Pittsburgh, this one much more positive, continuing to complicate their role within the story. While trying to escape from the city, Joel and Ellie stumble into another pair of survivors, Henry and Sam, and the four decide to work together. During a rare, quiet moment, Henry and Joel have a chance to discuss their plans, and we're gonna watch that scene together. As you watch, I want you to pay attention to Henry this time. What is his perspective on all this? What do the Fireflies symbolize for him? Alright, here it is.
So where were you heading?
Heard the Fireflies are based out west somewhere. We're gonna join up with them. Something funny?
Oh, it just seems like there's a lot of people putting their stock on the Fireflies these days.
Yeah, maybe there's a reason for that.
So you don't know where they are, and you're just gonna drag him across the country to find them?
I tell you what, how about I worry about my brother, you worry about your girl.
Easy. We're looking for the Fireflies, too.
Once again, Joel's behavior is a bit dismissive and condescending. Just look at his body language, the way he scoffs. And in contrast, watch Henry's body language. The way he leans forward, how quickly he moves, the way he bounces in his chair a little. Everything about his body language screams excitement. Joel makes a really good point here. You're going to drag your little brother through all of this, through all this danger, all this horror, maybe hundreds of miles of it, and you don't even know where they are? You don't even really know where you're going or how far you'll have to go? We will have already seen how much Henry cares about Sam, how protective he is of his little brother. This must be a pretty serious belief to be worth putting Sam's life in danger for. Just like Tess, the Fireflies offer Henry hope. Something to fight for, something to search for, something to be excited about. And that is something special in this world, this total nightmare, where nothing good ever seems to happen. Of course, Henry and Sam's search for the Fireflies ends in tragic failure. For these two, the Fireflies' hope proves to be a false one, foreshadowing the disappointment which Joel and Ellie's journey will end in too. In the next section, the story offers an alternative choice, something different from both the grim military oppression of Fedra and the fleeting false hope of the Fireflies' revolution. This third choice is represented by Jackson, Wyoming, a survivor settlement which is independent of any other faction, self-sustaining, based on ideas of community and family, working together to build something greater than any individual would be capable of alone. This third way is made even more striking by the fact that one of its leaders is Tommy, Joel's brother, and more importantly, a former Firefly. I think that Jackson is the most damning evidence for the misguided nature of the Fireflies' mission. Tommy used to believe in the Fireflies. He fought for them. He bled for them. But in the end, he turned his back on their revolution. With the Fireflies, he never really accomplished anything. Without the Fireflies, he helped to build this, the safest, most peaceful location in the entire game. The closest these characters ever get to anything resembling a normal life. If the writers really wanted us to believe in the competence and capabilities of the Fireflies, wanted us to believe that not only could they manufacture a cure, but that they could use that cure to build a better world, we would need to see the Fireflies doing something like this, building communities like this one, but we never do. But I'm getting ahead of myself again. After departing from Jackson, Joel and Ellie journey to the University of Eastern Colorado, a supposed research base run by the Fireflies. However, by the time they arrive, the Fireflies are already gone. According to audio logs left by a senior researcher, now dead, the Fireflies have made no progress in their search for a cure in years. There's not much more to add to the story of the Fireflies at this location. The university is mostly a repeat of their previous portrayals. Once again, the Fireflies are on the retreat. Once again, they have failed. Moving on to the final act of the game, Joel and Ellie reach Salt Lake City, home of the Fireflies headquarters. I want to watch two short cutscenes here. In these cutscenes, the Fireflies will finally appear on screen, finally interact with our main characters, and pay really close attention to how the writers are choosing to portray them, because I think there is something surprising here. Okay, here it is.
Hands in the air!
She's not breathing.
Hands in the fucking air!
Come on.
Get up. I said get up. Go on. Move.
I said move.
Give me an excuse.
Which way?
What the fuck you doing? Keep walking. I said keep walking.
Throughout this story, the Fireflies represented hope, something to fight for. Joel and Ellie have spent the whole game trying to reach them, believing that something good would happen when they did, something that would make all this horror and suffering worthwhile. The Fireflies were supposed to offer salvation to a violent and ruined world. The Fireflies were supposed to be different than everyone else. They were supposed to be better. They were supposed to be the light in the darkness. And now, when they finally appear on screen, it turns out they are just as contemptible as everyone else. They are bullies, they are vindictive, they are cruel, they behave like villains. When they encounter a man performing CPR on a child, their response is not to help, not to ask questions, but instead to immediately club him in the back of the head. In a text log, it's revealed that they wanted to kill Joel here, for no apparent reason, just for convenience sake. The guy who fought across hundreds of miles to deliver their cure to them. It was only Marlene's intervention that saved him, and she not out of simple mercy, but a much more convoluted desire to preserve the life of someone who understands the decision she has to make. Afterwards, this soldier is needlessly antagonistic towards Joel, making it hard to sympathize with him when he is later killed. This choice of betrayal by the writers really confuses me. If you wanted us to sympathize with the Fireflies, to feel compassion for them, to want them to succeed, why did you portray them as such assholes? It seems to me that the reason why the writers portrayed them this way was specifically so that the player would not sympathize with them, so that we wouldn't feel as bad for them, so that the player would feel free to participate in their slaughter without heavy guilt. The writers wanted to portray a more realistic resistance movement, a band of rebels who don't have hearts of gold, who are not destined to win, who fail to overthrow the evil empire, who seem to fail at everything, who don't seem particularly better than the evil empire they're trying to overthrow. And so, when the final choice arrives, where either Ellie has to die, a character who we've all fallen in love with, a character who represents the remaining goodness of the human race, or the Fireflies have to die, a group of people who fail at everything, and whose behavior is just as odious as everyone else. That choice is an easy one. When I first played The Last of Us, I was on the side of the Fireflies. The salvation of humanity is definitely worth the life of one girl. However, the more I've played, the more I dig into the story, the less convinced I am that the Fireflies are capable of achieving that salvation, of crafting a cure, of using that cure to build a better world. The people who built an actual better world were Tommy and Maria back in Jackson, Wyoming. They built something worth fighting for. They built something that not only inspires hope, but actually fulfills that hope. By contrast, the Fireflies have nothing to offer. They have built nothing. They are among the most intimidating enemies in the game, organized, well-equipped, and well-armed, wielding powerful weapons not seen anywhere else in the game, but that's all they are, a powerful final antagonist. The last obstacle to be overcome before the credits roll. For all their apparent moral complexity, they end their story as a pretty typical action video game final boss. But we cannot end our discussion of the Fireflies until we have talked about their leader, Marlene. To understand how the writers developed her character, we're gonna rewind. We're gonna go all the way back to her introduction. Okay, so let's watch that together now. Here it is.
Well, now what?
We go get our merchandise back.
How?
I don't know. We explain it to them. Look, let's just go find a Firefly.
We won't have to look very far.
There you go. Queen Firefly.
Why are you here?
Business. You aren't looking so hot.
Where's Robert? I needed him alive.
The guns he gave you, they weren't his to sell. I want them back.
Doesn't work like that, Tess.
The hell it doesn't.
I paid for those guns. You want them back? You're gonna have to earn them.
How many cards are we talking about?
I don't give a damn about ration cards. I need something smuggled out of the city. You do that, I'll give you your guns back, and then some.
How do we know you got them? Well, I hear the military's been wiping you guys out.
You're right about that. I'll show you the weapons.
Search the area. Yes, sir.
I gotta move. What's it gonna be?
I want to see those guns.
Follow me.
This is my least favorite cutscene in the game. At the exact moment that Joel and Tess decide to go find a Firefly, the leader of the entire organization just pops around the corner. How incredibly convenient. Like, where did she come from? How long was she hiding back there? But no story's perfect. Let's actually talk about Marlene herself. For her first appearance in the game, Marlene is not portrayed in a position of power. She is weakened, she is wounded, she is bleeding, she is alone, she has no soldiers to command. There is nothing in her appearance or demeanor that sets her significantly apart from any other NPC we encounter in the Boston quarantine zone. She even expresses fear, nervousness. She acknowledges that the Fireflies are getting wiped out. She has to run and hide from the soldiers. She's not intimidating or imposing in any of the ways you would expect the leader of a revolution to look. Okay, so what is she then? What do the writers want us to think about her? Well, in this first scene, Marlene is, above all else, pragmatic. She needs something done, and she gets it done using the limited tools that are available to her. She needs Ellie delivered safely out of the quarantine zone, but her soldiers are dead, fled, or otherwise preoccupied, so she turns to Robert. Robert's dead too, whatever. She sees the opportunity of making a deal with Joel and Tess, who she knows are capable smugglers, and she seizes on it immediately. Throughout this scene, and the one with Ellie that follows, you see hints here and there of her authority. She speaks decisively and with confidence. She puts her foot down when she has to. She has boundaries and she sticks to them. She is as much in control of the situation as someone in her weakened position possibly could be. You can see those qualities which must make her an effective leader. With all that said, her role here at the start is a very simple one. She is here to set Joel and Ellie off on their journey, to supply our protagonists with their first objective. As soon as she completes that role, she disappears. After Boston, Marlene is absent from the story for hours and hours, until the very end, until Joel and Ellie reach their final destination in Salt Lake City. So let's watch that next cutscene to see her reintroduction to the story, when her role in that story transforms. Here it is.
Welcome to the Fireflies. Sorry about that. They didn't know who you were.
And Ellie?
She's all right. They brought her back. You came all this way. How'd you do it?
It was her. She fought like hell to get here. Maybe it was meant to be.
I lost most of my crew crossing the country. I pretty much lost everything. And then you show up, and somehow we find you just in time to save her. Maybe it was meant to be.
Take me to her.
You don't have to worry about her anymore. We'll take care of her.
I worry. Just let me see her, please.
You can't. She's being prepped for surgery.
The hell you mean, surgery?
The doctors tell me the cordyceps, the growth inside her, has somehow mutated. It's why she's immune. Once they remove it, they'll be able to reverse engineer a vaccine. A vaccine.
But it grows all over the brain.
It does.
Find someone else.
There is no one else.
Listen, you were gonna show me where...
Stop. I get it. But whatever it is you think you're going through right now is nothing to what I have been through. I knew her since she was born. I promised her mother I would look after her.
Then why are you letting this happen?
Because this isn't about me, or even her. There is no other choice here.
Yeah, you keep telling yourself that bullshit.
March him out of here. He tries anything, shoot him. Don't waste this gift, Joel.
In this scene, Marlene is something of a ghost, like someone who has arisen from the dead. Joel has been through so much since the last time we saw her. So much has happened. They have traveled so far that there's almost something shocking about seeing Marlene again here. This figure from the start of the journey, now at its end, apparently unchanged while everything else has changed around her. The last time we saw her, she was weak and wounded, but not anymore. Now, Marlene is very much in a position of authority. She has soldiers to command. She controls this situation. Early in her dialogue, she makes it clear that she has been on just as harrowing and just as dramatic of a journey as Joel has. She went through hell and came back out on the other side to be here. There's this earlier scene between Joel and Ellie where Joel says, "Hey, we could just forget all this and go back to Jackson. We could just go live in peace together." And Ellie says, "No, after all we've been through, everything that I've done, it can't be for nothing." At that moment, Ellie is thinking about all the people she's lost. She's thinking about Riley, she's thinking about Tess, she's thinking about Henry and Sam. All these people who have died. Their deaths had to be for something. Their lives can't have been meaningless. And I think Marlene is feeling something very similar here. She has lost people too. She has lost dozens of Fireflies, of friends, of people she led. All that suffering and loss and pain, it cannot be for nothing. Except that it was for nothing, at least at first. When Marlene first arrived at Salt Lake City, she discovered that Ellie never made it. And so she had lost Boston, she had lost all those people, she had lost the respect of those under her command, she had lost the potential salvation of humankind, and she had nothing to show for any of it. Imagine how devastating that would be, how hard it would be to carry on. Until Joel appeared as if from nowhere and gave her this incredible gift, this miracle. By delivering Ellie to her, he's not just offering her the potential cure to the plague. What he's really offering her is meaning. He's offering to make Marlene's journey meaningful, to make all those sacrifices, all that death, all that loss, all that suffering, make it all mean something. And of course, Marlene seizes on it. When she says that line, maybe it was meant to be. I think she's feeling something very spiritual. Something like destiny and fate, like God's design. Like she is acting with the will of something much greater than herself. If these circumstances had not been so drastic, if she hadn't just completed such a terrible journey, if she had not lost so much, if so many people had not died to make this moment possible, I think Marlene would have been much more hesitant to sacrifice Ellie's life. But given this context, what else could she have done? I do think that Marlene is a villain in this story, a morally complicated villain whose goals are largely noble but still a villain. She is going to murder a child, and it is murder, for what seems like a very uncertain possibility of a cure. But Marlene is also an extremely sympathetic villain. One of the most sympathetic villains I've ever seen anywhere, in any story. She is so sympathetic, so confident in her own choices, so certain that what she is doing is right, that millions of players have agreed with her, have come away from this game believing that she was the one in the right. It's just fantastic writing. I think the really villainous moment for Marlene comes when she says that line. Whatever it is you think you're going through right now is nothing compared to what I have been through. This is Marlene's great flaw. This is what makes her a villain. She seems to believe that there is something special about her own personal journey, but she is not capable of recognizing that same meaningfulness in Joel's journey. She is entirely dismissive of Joel's feelings, whatever it is you think you're going through, not the deep pain that you are actually truly feeling. With that line, I think Marlene is revealing that she does not view other people as emotionally complete or complex as she views herself. To her, he's just a smuggler. He's just some guy. He's just a character in her story. And that is what dooms her, what seals her fate. This arrogance, this inability to recognize the humanity in another. She could have approached this situation in a very different way. This could have been a discussion. Ellie could have been a part of that discussion. That's another thing that makes me suspicious of Marlene's motives. There's no urgency here, no need to rush. They can cut open Ellie's brain at any time. Why not wait for Ellie to wake up? Why not let the kid have some say in her own fate? Marlene also claims that her personal connection to Ellie means that this sacrifice hurts her too, but I'm very skeptical of this connection. As far as I can tell, all Marlene ever did was dump Ellie in the Boston orphanage and then leave her to rot. Is that really what Ellie's mother meant when she asked Marlene to watch over her child? Has Marlene ever done right by this child? I think for Marlene, it's always been about Marlene's journey, about Marlene's destiny, Marlene's ideals. Ellie's feelings are just as much of an afterthought as Joel's. When she says, "This isn't about me," I don't believe her. I think this is very much about making her own suffering and her own sacrifices matter. She has a cloak of legitimacy since she can claim that this might benefit others, not just herself. But her previous decisions, the way she dismisses the feelings of others, the way she rushes to sacrifice Ellie's life without giving Ellie any choice, the antagonism and cruelty of the soldiers under her command, their long history of failure and incompetence, all of these tear gaping holes in that legitimacy. Now, to finish Marlene's story, we need to watch her final scene, where her character is complicated even further. As you watch this scene, I want you to think about a question. Why doesn't Marlene shoot? Why doesn't she fire her weapon? She has the opportunity but chooses not to. Why not? Alright, here it is.
You can't save her. Even if you get her out of here, then what? How long before she's torn to pieces by a pack of clickers? That is, if she hasn't been raped and murdered first.
It ain't for you to decide.
It's what she'd want. And you know it. Look. You can still do the right thing here. She won't feel anything.
So I've just spent the last chunk of this video trying to convince you that Marlene is the villain of this story, that she is selfish, that she cares more about her own emotional needs than the needs of others. But the writers of The Last of Us just never let it be that simple. Marlene can't just be the villain. Here at the very end, she complicates her own role in the story by refusing to take that shot. She could have killed Joel. She has a gun pointed at his head. He doesn't even notice her at first. Moreover, she should shoot. Joel is extremely dangerous. He's proven that time and time again. He is very willing to kill to get his way. Letting him live is frankly completely idiotic. Like, fans of the series have spent a lot of time talking about how dumb it was for Joel to trust Abby in part 2, but Marlene choosing to trust Joel here, of all people, is a million billion times dumber. All the people who are upset by Joel's behavior in part 2, you should have already been way more upset in this moment. So why doesn't Marlene take the shot? Why does she do something so foolish, so self-destructive? Well, I think for all her selfishness, for all her dismissiveness, Marlene is a character who truly does want to do the right thing. She truly wants to be a good person. She may be sacrificing Ellie to fulfill her own emotional needs, reasons, but she's also doing it because she really does think it's the right thing to do. She would not kill Ellie otherwise. I think she wants Joel to be persuaded of the rightness and goodness of her decision. It almost seems like she wants Joel to validate her decision, to make her feel better about it. Joel is the only other person around who shares a personal, emotional connection with Ellie. For all the rest of the Fireflies, Ellie might as well just be a slab of meat, which, once it's carved up, may provide them with a cure for the plague. At least that's what she is as long as she remains unconscious. I think that's part of why they're rushing to perform the surgery as soon as possible, because as soon as she wakes up, as soon as she starts talking and interacting with them, she will become a person again, and these surgeons will have to grapple with the fact that they are killing an actual living person, a child, someone who has just as much of a right to live as they themselves do. Marlene wants validation from the only other person here who already views Ellie as a person, as more than just a means to an end. She wants him to agree with her. She wants Joel to say, "Oh yeah, you're right, she would want this. You are doing the right thing, Marlene, don't worry about it." Her need for validation is her final mistake. If she had truly believed in her own decision, if she had stuck to her decision without trying to persuade Joel of her righteousness, if she had killed him when she had the chance, she would have survived this story. Marlene's death is one of the ugliest in either games. It is bloody and pathetic. She dies on the ground pleading for life. She is shot like a dog. She is not given any dignity or respect in death. For all my criticisms, I do think Marlene deserved better than this. In many ways, her manner of death very closely resembles the way Joel is murdered in Part 2. And I do think with Joel's death, the writers wanted the player to be on the other side of Marlene's death. They wanted us to feel what it's like to see someone we care about killed in this same way. But that's a discussion for another video. I'll just say that, in the same way that Joel's death in Part 2 is as much a result of his own choices and mistakes as it is a result of Abby's misguided quest for vengeance, Marlene's is the same way. Her own choices led her to this moment. To end this video, I want to return to Jackson, Wyoming, because I really think that Jackson is the Achilles heel to Marlene's entire character. Marlene is willing to kill a child for the chance of a cure, but Jackson proves that humanity doesn't need a cure to survive. A cure for the plague will not be our salvation. Her vaccine might cure the plague, but it won't turn all those monstrous people Joel and Ellie encountered on their journey into saints. It won't cure all those people of their selfishness and violence and brutality. Instead, what humanity needs is for humans to be better. Humanity needs people who are willing to work together, to forge communities, to build families, to build something bigger than themselves. Humanity needs more people like Ellie, who are compassionate and empathetic and strong. Those qualities of her character which make her a good person are the real cure for humanity, not her immunity to the cordyceps. And it was the Fireflies' inability to recognize that, their rush to kill her for the ephemeral chance of a cure that may not have made any difference anyway, that ultimately marks them as villains. In my next video, I'm going to examine another villain from The Last of Us. My next video will look at David, a character who you probably think of as being much less morally complex than the Fireflies, but whose role in the story is actually really interesting and really important, so please look forward to that.